Hey, this is Nick from Income Digs, and I have a question for you. Are you thinking of hiring a bookkeeper for your real estate investing business? If so, good for you, but I want you to spend just 5 minutes with me, make sure that we are going about it the right way, making sure we're not making a few crucial mistakes so that you can get the right person on your team to make sure your books are in line. Now, everything I'm going to cover here, we talk about it in depth in my end-to-end course, Real Estate Accounting Bootcamp. Talk a little bit about that at the end, but let's get into it. If you're thinking about hiring a bookkeeper, here's what I want to make sure you understand. First and foremost, I want you to understand, and I want to make sure your bookkeeper understands that QuickBooks was not made with real estate investors in mind. We are certainly a different breed. We're a little bit different. All right. Now I want your bookkeeper to know that. That doesn't mean they can't do the job, but they have to understand that real estate investing is a little bit different. It's not your standard retail job. It's not your standard brick and mortar business. Understanding and embracing the fact that we're a little bit different, that is a preliminary step for sure. So make sure we have our mindset right. We are very different for a few specific reasons. Now, when it comes to hiring your bookkeeper, there's 3 steps I want you to take, 3 things I want you to think about. First and foremost, I want you to gain an understanding of QuickBooks Online for yourself. This does not mean I want you to go and spend so much time and effort to become an expert on bookkeeping and accounting. That is not what you need to do as a business owner, as an investor, but I do want you to gain a general understanding of how things work, how things are going to be formatted, what your reports are going to look like. Because first and foremost, you are the business owner, the decision maker. So your bookkeeper is going to come to you and ask questions. Hey, does this report look good? What about if I do it this way or that way? I want you to feel confident having the competency to answer those questions so that you can deliver the instructions to your bookkeeper so that you can both work together and get the numbers to tell the story for your business. So first and foremost, gain an understanding of QuickBooks Online for yourself. Second, ensure that your bookkeeper is trained in QBO for real estate investors and specifically for real estate investors. As we mentioned on the previous slide, this is not your standard business, okay? Real estate investors have property. We do depreciation, we do amortization, we do flips, and then we transfer stuff to the balance sheet. We do all this interesting stuff, all right? And understanding that, making sure your bookkeeper knows how real estate investors work and has a good understanding is really important. A lot of bookkeepers are really good in other businesses and they get into real estate and maybe at first they're not that competent in it. In fact, we have a lot of students in our end-to-end course who are coming for that exact reason. Ensure that your bookkeeper is investing in the training specifically for real estate investing. You want them to be competent in this specific niche, in this very, very complex industry. And then I want you to ask these 3 questions. The answers to these questions are going to help you understand if your bookkeeper understands the weight of the really specific problems that come up when we are doing bookkeeping for real estate investing. First, how do you differentiate properties? So as investors, we always want to be able to understand our profitability by property, by project, or what we own and what we owe by property, okay? So what is the best way to do that from your bookkeeper's perspective? Now, they might have a strategy that is different from me or different from how you might think about it, and that's okay. Just be open to it. Let's see how they answer that question. Do they have a strategy? Do they have a reason why they like that strategy? If that question hits them out of the blue and they're not really sure what you mean by it, then that's probably a red flag. Second, how do they do job costing? So we need to be able to understand how much we spend on a really specific job or project. What is their strategy for that? I have my strategies. I'm going to show you some of those in a second. Do they have a plan for that? Again, if they don't really have a plan or they're not really sure what you're talking about, that's a red flag for sure. Lastly, how do they handle multiple entities? You as an investor either now already have multiple entities or maybe in the future plan to have multiple entities. That means multiple tax identification numbers, multiple business entities, partnerships, LLCs, okay? And if you have that, what is your bookkeeper strategy for managing all those different entities? It might be that they want to split things up into a few different subscriptions of QuickBooks. That might be the answer, but they might also benefit from having it all in one place and using the location field to differentiate. Either way, again, if this is something that hits them out of the blue, that is a red flag for you. Ask those 3 questions. I'm going to show you what you can be looking for. Let's look at it within QuickBooks itself. All right, so we talk about the first, which is differentiating your properties. How are we going to do that? We want to be able to, as investors, see how we're doing by property. So a profit and loss statement, I want to understand by property, how much am I making, how much am I spending, and what is my profit? Okay, there has to be some way to do that. You can do it by classes, you can do it by customer, there's pros and cons to each of those strategies, What is your bookkeeper's plan for that? And do you agree with it? Does it make sense with the way that you've set up your books? Do you have 100 properties? If you do, you probably don't want to use Class because you're going to run out and you have to use QuickBooks Online Advanced. We might want to use Customer. Are you invoicing out to your tenants? If so, we might want to deviate from Customer a little bit, right? So depending on how you're set up and what your strategy is, what is your bookkeeper's plan going to be? So not only our P&L, but our balance sheet as well. We want to be able to see an understanding of what we own as well as what we owe by property. What I'm demonstrating here is what I call a two-dimensional chart of accounts, okay? So a gigantic red flag, again, is if your bookkeeper says, well, the way that we would do this is you have a separate account for your buildings for each property, a separate account for your land for each property, a separate account for everything. That is an absolute no-go, okay? So if you have 10 properties, you can't have 40 different accounts to handle all that, all right? That's just not gonna work out. It's not scalable. Then you have some way of doing what we call a two-dimensional chart of accounts. Your properties across the top and a really generic list along the side here, okay? Really, really important. How are we going to manage multiple properties, both on the balance sheet and on the profit and loss? Second, job costing. How are we going to understand what we spend on a project by project basis, and how are we going to do that with our really specific categories? So as investors, we are probably building something at some point in time. Flippers, we're doing a lot of that. We're not flipping, we're just renovating rental properties. We're still doing that as well. When we are budgeting, we are typically coming up with a list of cost estimates by category, okay? And your list of categories is surely going to be different than what I'm displaying here, but you're going to have some kind of list of categories. And your question to your bookkeeper is, how are we going to track actual costs to those specific categories? There should be a really specific strategy for that. Again, we do not want them to say, well, just list out a separate account in your chart of accounts for all that. That's not going to work either. We need to be able to use products and services, or what we like to call cost codes, okay? If we're putting a whole bunch of money into, say, rehab costs, we should be able to use products and services to understand the various different categories that we're using for that. I have a lot of videos on how to do this. Check them out for sure. But basically, we're going to set up all of those categories as products and services here, okay? And we're going to map those to the appropriate place on the chart of accounts. Your bookkeeper should have a pretty strong understanding of how that works. If you're going to be using anything like Builder you're going to have those cost codes there. You're going to need to connect those to QuickBooks Online. So it is absolutely a must. That is the way to do it for sure. Well, last one is separating out our entities. So I mentioned we have to separate out by project. You might have the need, you probably will have the need to also separate out by business. So can you take a balance sheet and see not only by properties, but can I potentially see by business what I own for each entity? Now, this is really helpful as a business owner. I can see the various entities all in one place, one subscription. I'm saving money. I'm saving so much time on the setup, and I can customize this to prep for taxes in a really easy way where I can say, just give me this business because I'm prepping for taxes and I need to deliver to my CPA a really nice, neat balance sheet. You can do that. Okay, and we are doing this right now. The way I'm demonstrating this is we're using the location field to do that. Now, again, your bookkeeper might have a different strategy. They might not want to use location for whatever reason. This is what we're doing here, location or business. They might not want to do it, but what's important is that they have a strategy and that they've thought about it and that you understand what their thought process is and that you agree that it's a good way moving forward for you in your business. If they have no strategy at all, that's going to be a big time problem. If it's a let's cross that bridge when we get there, that's also not okay, because the way we set up now, maybe we only have one entity now, but if we have more in the future, we have to be prepared for the ability to grow and scale this whole entire setup. All right, so if you're thinking about hiring a bookkeeper, that is awesome. I really encourage you to do so that you can get back to investing more, spending less time in the books. Now, I mentioned my end-to-end course, Real Estate Accounting Bootcamp. Definitely check that out. If you are just getting started in QuickBooks Online, you want to gain that understanding for yourself, definitely check out the course, take the course. If you have a bookkeeper that you want to take it as well, have them get a username as well. We do not charge extra for multiple people within the same team. We can get multiple users in there. Check it out for you and your team. All right, check out all the free videos we have. I also want to hear your comments. If you try to hire a bookkeeper, it didn't go well, or if you have a question about it, throw it in the comments here. Let me know what's going on with you and your business. Let me know what other videos you want to see as well. Subscribe for updates so that you get everything that I publish as soon as it comes out. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.